Hello and welcome to this edition of You Can Get There From Here. I'm Dr. Joe Moore, Chair of the Department of Communication at the University of Central Missouri, and it's my pleasure every week to get to sit down with some of our alumni and talk about their careers, what brought them to UCM, how the university helped them get there, and then they're going to offer us a little bit of advice. I get to talk to graduates from digital media production, others who earned their master's degree, some who got a bachelor's in communication studies, and even some who got their degree in public relations. Today, we are talking with Tagan Trahoon. Tagan is a 2017 graduate of our digital media production program, and he is now the Deputy News Director at KVOE Radio in Emporia, Kansas. He's also a sideline reporter, a podcaster, a play-by-play announcer. He's basically a man of many parts. Whew! Tagan, great to have you on the show. How you been, buddy?
I'm great, man. I'm really honored to be here, and it's kind of a full circle moment getting interviewed about my career that you and many others at UCM actually had a huge part in helping start. So I'm doing great, and it's great to be here.
Well, we're so glad to have you, and we're really excited to dig in and talk about where what you did here at UCM, what you're doing now, and all those other great things. But let's start at the beginning. Where are you originally from, and what brought you to UCM?
Well, I had to travel a long way to start my career. I work in Emporia, Kansas, and I was born in Emporia, Kansas. So full circle moment there, I guess. But so I come from Emporia, Kansas. It's the seat of Lyon County in Lyon County, Kansas, and I grew up in a working class home, a working class family. My mom was a teacher. My dad was a utilities guy for many years for Evergy. He was second generation there. And my brother and I both figured we were going to go into utility work and be linemen. And then my father said, if you ever even think about it, I'll disown both of you. Um, and like when we were kids, we were just like, oh, he doesn't think we can do it. And then I realized he was like, no, like it's a very hard life and I want better for you guys. And to me, that was kind of funny because like there's nothing more noble outside of obviously military service or, being a first responder than being the guy that goes and turns the lights back on when people are left in the dark during a storm. So, I think he knew that our talents lied somewhere else. So he wanted us to go and forge our own path. And, that's kind of what led me into performance. And, I was in theater since I was like 5 or 6 years old. And that led me to speech and debate, where I had a very good career, both in high school and college. And funny enough, that's what led me to UCM. I got recruited out of high school by Hutchinson Community College, competed there for 2 years, won a national championship there, and had some state honors. And then I was at a tournament in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I was being judged by the head coach of the Talking Mules, Jack Rogers. And right after I finished that round, man, my phone started blowing up, and it was people from the Talking Mules messaging me and be like, "Hey, you should really come check out UCM." And I was actually on the path to be a speech teacher at that time because my mom was a teacher, my aunt was a teacher, my stepbrother was a teacher, my cousin was a teacher. Just kind of seemed like the natural path, and I could coach speech and debate. That was like the one thing I was just like, yeah, I'm really good at this. That makes a lot of sense. And then I found out that UCM had the digital media production program. And I remember coming in and talking with Jack. And then when I visited UCM, they told me all about it. And I actually went and toured the facilities. And, one thing I hadn't told a lot of people was since I was a little kid, I wanted to be a commentator. That's what I wanted to do after my pro wrestling career didn't work out. And I say that and people laugh, but that's literally what it was. I wanted to be a pro wrestler. And I got hurt when I was young, and the doctors were just like, yeah, there's no chance. And I was really bummed out. And then my mom was like, I never saw you being a pro wrestler. I was like, thanks, Mom. Um, but she was just like, no, 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 no. Like, I always saw you as the guy behind the table, like making them sound as great as they look, And I was like, I hadn't thought about it. And then, I was like 12 years old, and I was just like, you know what? Yeah, like that makes a lot of sense. But that was such an impossible dream. You know what I mean? Like, how do I get a headset on? Like I don't even know where to start. And when I found UCM and they told me like you can do digital media production, which means you can work in front of a camera, you can work with a camera. I always loved film editing, so my original emphasis was in film. And then, I found out about the sports comm minor, which of course I took under you. And I was like, you know what? This is a path. This is an avenue. And we started doing stuff for the minor going into my final year. And I remember this was the day where I was like, I can do this. I had met you twice before that
Hmm.
point, and it was very quick and in passing. And I was so intimidated because
By
I
me?
didn't, yeah, because like it was so fast. I was like, oh, hello, Professor Moore. I go, hi, yeah, good to see you. And then just shoom off to something. And then the second time I met you was at I think it was at a football game. And again, it was very quick because you were running upstairs to go give somebody stats for the broadcast. I was like, oh, hey, that dude knows what he's doing. I don't know about this. And then I found out I had you in a class. I took a summer class, and it was basically the final was you had to do your own sports show. And I filmed a sports show called The Rundown, where I
Remember
talked
that.
about the top five things in the sports world at that point in time. And it was filmed in my kitchen by my mother, and I'm just going off a laptop. And my mom always said, you have a BA and forgive my language, you have a BA and BS. Use it. And so I, just drew inferences from the things I knew about what was happening, and I expanded on it. I got it done. I looked at it, I said, that's as good as it's gonna get, because I wasn't a huge like traditional sports guy.
Hmm.
I was very non-traditional. Hockey, wrestling, soccer, football. But not like American football, basketball. I don't know. It just never really interested me as a kid. So I was having to really use that BA. And I thought to myself, like, well, that should pass at least, that should at least get me through the class, and then I can get in and really start to learn. Sent it in, and then I met you for the first time for what would be like our relationship when it formed. And I remember you said, this always sticks with me. I am so excited that you're in this class. Your sports show reel showed me a lot of possibilities. And I was like, there's a possibility. I was like, I could do this. And so, I mean, in a roundabout way, that's what led me into UCM. And that's what really led me to seeing this as a viable career path where I was like, okay, if this dude who is huffing and puffing upstairs and knows everything I could ever hope to know, plus more, was excited by something I did, it's like, I might have a chance at this. And, fast forward, sorry, Joe, I'm going to age both of us a little bit here. Uh, Fast forward about 10 years and, I'm living the dream. I tell that to everybody. They always go, how you doing? I go, I'm living the dream every day, every day.
I can attest to that because every time I talk to you, I say, "How's it going?" And you tell me I'm living the dream. It just a lot of times it takes that little bit of raw
Yeah.
talent, and you can see it. And then after that, and we try to do that with all of our students to say, "This is what you're good at. This is the potential you have." But then you have to take it and run with it. And you were one of those who took it and run with it. And you used to wear me out trying to find opportunities, trying to find ways. How can I get on camera? How can I get behind the microphone? And you're a performer. I mean, there are a lot of people, a lot of professional play-by-play announcers, a lot of professional color commentators that got their start in speech and debate because
Yeah.
you have to present, you have to perform, you have to be able to think on your feet, you have to be able to do the research. And you're a testament to that because that's what got you your start, and that's part of what got you where you are today. So you've moved back to Emporia. What
Mhm.
was it like going home?
Oh, it was great. So a lot of people get the misconception. It's like, he couldn't make it anywhere else. That's not true. I actually had quite a few offers after I left UCM, including staying in Kansas City where I lived for the 4 months prior. doing my internship with Zimmerman Productions.
Hmm.
You know, uh, Mr. Zimmerman really liked my camera work. And that was something I never really thought about, but like I'm very meticulous, and I think you know this.
Yeah.
You mentioned wearing you out. I think I wore you out a few times just with that.
In a good way,
But
in a positive way.
sure, we could rewrite history on that one. But no, I was just very meticulous, and like I'll be honest. Growing up, I wasn't the most popular kid, as you I know it's shocking. Um, so I spent a lot of time alone. I spent a lot of time like watching TV and watching movies and watching sporting events, when my dad wasn't screaming at the Chiefs or the Royals. And I don't know, like it just kind of my brain works in a way that it memorizes certain things, but it's only like the things that you think are useless until you need it. And it memorized just like what a good camera angle looked like. And then of course going to UCM, we're all hands on there.
Hmm.
Like we do very little lecture. We do a lot of hands-on things. And you know, having that experience and seeing what a good camera angle looks like versus a bad one, I think that's all it was. And so they really liked the way that I used my camera work. And I still got phone calls from him after I moved back to Emporia. I was was starting my career there. I was working 4 jobs when I moved back to Emporia because I was only a part-timer at the radio station when I started there. But I was working 4 different jobs plus going to Kansas City to do, T-Bones games, now the Monarchs. And, when I went home, I was kind of sitting there, like, I've had these offers and I've had these opportunities, but I don't think it's what I want to do. So I was kind of lost. Like, I was like, man, I never thought I'd be so uncertain when I had so many offers. And I remember towards the end of my internship, I was visiting my girlfriend, now my wife. I was visiting her family and staying with them. And you and I actually, I called you and I was on the phone with you for like 45 minutes, just saying like, Joe, I don't know what to do. And I'll never forget this quote for as long as I lie. You go, kid, you're the only person I've ever met who could have the whole world at his feet and be overwhelmed by it. And I was like, I know, but I just don't know what to do. And you and my mom both were just like, well, maybe you go back home and reset. And I was kind of burnt out. I've been away from home for 5 years, and family is the most important thing in the world to me.
Hmm.
Um, there's nothing that I would ever take over my family. You could tell me, hey, you get to go announce every World Cup match for the entire tournament, but you can't speak to your family the whole time. No, thank you. My family's everything. And so, I really missed my family. I wasn't getting to see them hardly at all. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to go back home. I'm going to start my career because the radio station was hiring. And I said, I'm going to get my foot in the door. It was something my dad always told me, my grandfather always told him and told us, just get your foot in the door. And I knew that's kind of where I wanted to be, was in broadcasting. I never realized I wanted to be a radio broadcaster. I wanted to be on TV. I knew that, but they're like, no, you go home, go home. So I went back home and I don't know, I felt at peace. I was like, yeah, like this is where I want to be. And, I think the plan was I was going to stay there for like 3 years and then move on. And I'm about to go into my 10th year. And it's partially because of the work I do, but it's also because of all the extra stuff I get to do within my community. My community gave me so much support and things like that when I was a kid, which you don't realize when you're a kid until you're older, but they gave me so much, and now I get to get back to it. It's kind of like that's one of the big things keeping me tethered here is, you know, I get to be a positive impact on top of, making a career. And so, it's great. It's been really good getting to be back home and reconnecting with old friends and family and getting to be a positive impact in the community that raised me up. So yeah, that's a long answer and I apologize, but no, it's been pretty great. It has its good days, has its bad days, but overall it's been pretty great.
That's one of the things I love about radio, in particular local radio, is like you said, it gives you a chance to give back to your community, be a
Yeah.
part of your community, be an important part of your community. There's a lot of people today that with streaming and things like that are saying radio's dead. It's going to die. What do you say to that? What do you say to that?
What do you listen to when you're driving 24 hours and, you know, you turn on the Sirius? I mean, you tell me. I mean, Sirius XM radio for one. I mean, we're not on that, but it ain't dead and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. I see more shows popping up every single day than I see going away. So I mean, that's one argument for that. The other thing too is I don't think a lot of people realize when your technology fails, radio's still there. Um, we have a thing here in Emporia called the preparedness fair, where we talk about different situations and things and preparedness plans for disasters and,
Yeah.
and whatnot. And one of the things I love is they have the Amateur Radio Association that comes in there, and they talk about the fact that hey, you realize when your phone goes down and the satellites don't work, you can still get the information through radio waves.
Yep.
And part of my job at the station is I'm a weather spotter, and I'm also a weather reporter. Which again, never thought I'd be doing that, but whenever there's severe weather in the area, everybody turns on their radio to listen to us to explain what's happening. And I know people are listening because they're usually commenting on our social media and things like that, or they're sending us photos or they're sending us images. So to anyone who says radio is dying, clearly you've never listened to anything other than, your phone or your iTunes, because it's very much alive and it's still very much useful. And we're going to be useful even when the technology's outdated. You know, I think it's such a, how do I put it? I think it's such a staple of Americana because
Mm.
I think a lot of us can remember growing up listening to the Royals or pick whatever baseball or basketball team you want,
Yeah.
or football team even. And here you are, you're listening to them on the radio, driving to your cousin's house or driving home from work, whatever it is. I mean, the fact that you still have radio commentators, I think is a big sign. And even if radio doesn't look the way it did 20 years ago, which it doesn't, it's become more technology based. Um, but it evolves.
And that's the strength of radio. It always has. I mean,
Yes.
since its heyday in the 20s, people have been saying it's dying, but we tell our students today that look at all the opportunities you have in radio now because radio with the internet, you're printing stories. You're out taking
Yeah.
cameras and you're videoing stories. You're getting photo carousels and things like that. But then also radio stations have become marketing tools for businesses. And they're doing a lot of their social media and they're doing all their content creation. So yeah, it's evolved a lot. How much has it evolved in the 10 years you've been there?
Oh, a lot. I mean, we've gone from just being solely a radio business to we operate our own YouTube channel now, which I handle quite a bit. We do YouTube, we do social media. We're out in person, talking to people, which has always been part of the thing. But the way that we do it is so much more different because now we're not just doing it, but we're videoing it and we're putting it out there. But then we take that audio and we put it on the air. It's crazy how much more video we've added to the audio component.
Yeah.
And I mentioned it evolves. Well, podcasting in a way is a form of radio. You know, I think radio, obviously, when you talk about it, you're talking about radio waves
Right.
and you're talking about the way that it's brought to you. But really, I think radio, the concept, is never going away because you listen to your podcast, that's the same as radio. It's just in a different format. You go and listen to an audiobook. It's no different. It's just in a different format. So I think when people say radio's dying, I don't think it's dying. I think it's shedding its skin.
It's a good
It's
way to
like
look
a
at it.
snake in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sheds the skin and it has a new form. But it's not even close to dying. The day radio dies is the day that a huge piece of Americana dies, in my opinion. And I don't just say that because it means I'm out of paycheck, but it really is. I don't think we'll ever let it die, because if we do, we kind of lose a piece of ourselves.
That's a great way to look at that. We are visiting with Tagan Trahoon. When we come back, we'll have more with our conversation. Did you know that in 1922, WEAF Radio in New York broadcast the first commercial radio advertisement? It was a 12-minute ad for Jackson Heights in Queens. According to Radio Content Pro, radio advertising delivers an average return of $12 for every dollar spent. In fact, Nielsen ranks radio advertising ROI second only to social media, as radio reaches 92% of American adults each month. Now you know.
It's a quick walk to class, just enough time for my friends to tell you about the amazing faculty we've got here at UCM.
They believed in me. There were many times that I didn't believe in myself.
They really have your back, and because there's a smaller class size, they can look after each student.
I had so much support from my faculty members. They met me where I was at and tried to find solutions that worked for me.
UCM professors can make all the difference. Schedule a visit today to meet with your future faculty.
Welcome back to You Can Get There From Here. We are sitting down with 2017 digital media production graduate Tagan Trahoon. Tagan is now the Deputy News Director at KVOE Radio in Emporia. Tagan, what is a Deputy News Director? Take us through that.
Deputy News Director is essentially second in command. That's kind of what it is.
Excellent.
I use a different term when I'm talking with my friends that I won't use on here. But no, really what it means is, I'm the second in command in the newsroom. So basically, whenever we have like part-timers working for us and things like that, I kind of take my marching orders from our news director, Chuck Samples. And then I will basically relay that. I'm kind of responsible for making sure it gets delved out and that it's done correctly. I'm like the last defense barrier, if that makes sense. Chuck's really good at making sure things are done correctly, but just in case, something needs a double check or anything like that, that's where I come into play. And then, if he goes on vacation, then it's my show, which, it's hard because the news director's on the morning show every morning, so he's into the station like 3:30, 4:30 in the morning, and then you do the whole morning show from like 6 to 9, and then you go and do your regular stuff. And then when I'm running the show by myself, or if Chuck, if I'm not there, he has to cover my shift too, which is usually the late morning to evening hours. You could put in I think the longest I put in was 39 and a half hours when we had
Wow.
We had our big gravel race in town. I didn't sleep for a day and a half, 2 days, because there's just so much to do, and if you go lay down, you're not going to be ready for it. But basically, my job is I also do I do an on-air shift, which I handle usually the late news segments for our radio, which is anything from headlines to the full newscast to our partial newscast, all that stuff. I also create content, which means I'm going out and interviewing people, or I'm calling somebody, getting the story, and then I turn it around. And I think my fastest turnaround time was we had a pretty significant car crash that happened a while back, and it happened right in the middle of our news block. And I think I turned that around in about 4.5 minutes with a 15 to 16-minute interview, trying to get information and things like that. So, it's basically it's exactly what it sounds like. I'm second in command. My main priority is news, and I'm attending meetings. I don't want to get into this too much, but we have a whole data center conversation going on here in Emporia, which obviously that's a huge topic nationally.
Right.
To give people kind of an idea, I can't leave until I get an interview with the people that I need to interview. So we've had 2 planning commission meetings on it, and back-to-back weeks. The first one was six hours and 10 minutes. Started at 6 p.m., got done at 12:30. I think I finally went home from the station like 3:30 in the morning after I wrote the story. The following week, when I was running the show, which meant I had to be on the morning show at 4:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
It went from like 6 to 10:30. So I got back to the station, wrote my story, and I think I finally went home about 12:30. I was able to get some food and get some sleep, so that was nice. But that's basically what it is. It's just long hours, and you're following anything from feel good stories or what we would call puff pieces to government affairs to criminal cases. I never thought I'd say this. I sat in the same room as cold-blooded convicted murderers, like 10 feet away from them. Never thought that would be something I'd be doing.
Wow.
So it's a whole gambit of things.
And then on top of all that, you're a sideline reporter, you're a play-by-play announcer, you've done some PA work. One of my proudest moments was when I was doing sideline for the Mules last year, and you were doing sideline for Emporia, and we met at midfield for the coin toss. And you jumped in there and you kind of posted me up. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
You kind of posted me up to get your
Oh, no.
microphone. And I'm like, okay, good for you. But you're not posting me up. And I had to force my way back.
You gave me one back. So I'll tell you this. This was actually kind of funny. I don't mean to detour or anything, but I thought you'd appreciate this. So obviously I went to UCM and I live in Emporia. I'm from Emporia and I'm the sideline reporter for the Emporia State football team. And I'm very close with those guys. I don't just stop at getting the story. I like to connect with them because then they can open up with you and you can talk. Some of them are still some of my dearest friends. Love them to death. So I'll always chat with them beforehand and they give me a hard time. They're like, didn't you go here? And I'm just like, yeah. But I do things on the sidelines where they're like, oh yeah, he went there, but he's a Hornet. And one of the things I said was, you guys should really watch at the start of the game. They go, what do you mean? I said, you see that guy standing right over there? And I was pointing at you. And they go, yeah. I said, that man taught me more than I could ever even begin to explain. And I love him more than he'll ever know. And I appreciate him more than he'll ever know. And I thank him so much for everything he's done. I'm about to go body him and let him know it's on. And I went over there.
You did.
We walked in. I saw you coming in. I was like, not today, sir. And I just like, I wouldn't say I bodied. I kind of just
You
like
bodied.
nudged. Yeah. I'm a big guy. What do you want? My idea of a nudge is like a body slam to someone else. But I did that. I walked over. Joe, I hope you were okay. There's no injuries, but I want you to understand how much dap I got for that. You're like, oh, he's gonna start a broadcaster fight. Like, we love this guy. And then we scored a touchdown. And I told all the guys, I said, you see that bell over there? So there's the teak bell.
Right.
And I just want to be clear.
Yep. I remember.
I am a teak from UCM. And I said, as soon as we score, because they were always asking what that bell's about. I said, it's for when they score, kick off. I said, as soon as we score, I'm running over to her. I'm going to beat the you-know-what out of that bell. So we scored, and nobody believed me, which is weird because they've met me. It's like, you should know when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. I don't care. So as soon as we did, they're all high-fiving and stuff, and I ran to the end zone. And this poor kid, he'd never met me before, just sees me running at him, and he's just like, I took the hammer out of his hand, and I just started smacking the bell. And I ran back down the other side of Ed Worthwine, who's one of our guys. The kid told him about it. He's like, you should have punched that guy in the face. He knew it was me. but yeah, no, like it's awesome, and I was very honored when I saw you walking across. I don't know if you noticed this. I know you were kind of focusing on the guys in front of you and trying to find a position. When we walked towards each other, I never broke eye contact with you.
I know, I didn't notice that.
Oh yeah, no, I was staring at you. Not trying to stare you down. I was just like, look at me, man. Like, I'm really glad that you acknowledged the moment of that, because I was like, Joe, look, like, I'm not that little kid anymore. Like, nope. I'm actually doing something with my life. And then I was like, okay, he's not looking at me. I'm gonna have to body him. So Sorry, I had to tell that. That was one of my proudest moments.
That's a great story. I'm glad you got that bit of credit, that street cred with your guys because of that. So
I'm a G, man. I'm a G. That's for sure. It's the only time I've ever been able to say that in my life.
well, to get there, you had to
hmm
start somewhere. And
hmm
we are so proud and so happy that that somewhere was here. So you talked a little bit about speech and debate. You talked a
hmm
little bit about working in the sports broadcasting. What else were you involved in that helps you get where you are today?
Um, well, I that actually goes back to high school. I was involved in a program called Be the Change, which is a program that was started by my mentor, Larry Williams, who it was all about youth positivity and giving kids a safe place and letting them know that there's people that care about them and support them. That's really the core mission. And it was just Larry showing up every Wednesday before school, bringing a box of donuts and us just talking, and getting a message and a life message. When I was a kid, I had some people who were supposed to impact me positively and they went the opposite direction and they did it intentionally. And it destroyed all my confidence.
Yeah.
And Larry was the first person outside my immediate family who saw something in me and he took it upon himself to build me back up. But the problem was all that confidence that was destroyed made me very guarded and very bitter. And I was not a fun person. I wouldn't even call myself a good person back then. Um, and Larry just gave me unconditional love and support. And he showed me that I was worth something. And that's kind of where that really started. In fact, unfortunately, we lost Larry, not this past March, but the March before. And now I actually run Be the Change. It's still around. Um, but having those people that believe in you and tell you you can do something, that really was a huge part. And then you guys started doing the same thing. And when enough people from enough different places that never met each other start telling you the same thing, you should start to believe it. But, that's kind of my involvement in that program gave me confidence to go forward, if that makes sense. I know that's kind of it's a roundabout way of answering that, so I apologize.
No, you're good.
Um, but specifically at UCM, of course, I was involved with Tau Kappa Epsilon fraternity. Still involved, as an alumni. Those guys also would gas me up from time to time and kind of get me fired up. And then, other than that, like I was really focused on just the things I wanted to do. So I didn't do a lot of like other extracurriculars or things like that. I was kind of living and breathing in the production room. And I'm not saying that was right or wrong. I'm just saying that that's what I did. I'd go work on some projects here and there outside of the room. Like, I did my own documentaries. Thank God for being able to sign out equipment. I did documentaries and I did film editing and things like that. And man, I can't even begin to tell you how much that helped me today. Because again, I do a lot of the editing for our stuff at the station. Whether it's like a recap video or it's our general manager got inducted into the Hall of Fame last year, getting his Hall of Fame video together. Like people come to me and they're like, well, we know you can do this. And so, those are the things that I think I was really involved with that translated over into my career today, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So the university's slogan now is redefining what's possible. What does that mean to you?
I think it means not limiting yourself. You know, I think we place limitations on ourselves entirely too easy and too often because other people do. I think redefining what's possible means you're redefining what you're capable of. And I try to do that in my own life every single day. I try to find something that I didn't think I could do and not master it, but at least understand it and make it happen. And I think it also means not just ourselves, but redefining what's possible for somebody else. I mentioned Larry, my mentor. He showed me that I was capable of things other than just being a violent kid. And, I was told, I go back to the individuals that were supposed to positively impact me. Their exact words to me when I was 12 years old, no, 11 years old, excuse me, was the only thing you'll be good for is being a statistic because you're either going to be dead or in prison by the age of 18.
Wow.
That was a direct quote. I'm 32 years old now. I'm married happily. I have a great career. I'm an award-winning broadcaster. I'm a mentor, and I do all these other things. And I was supposed to be dead or in prison, I think 18 years ago. So, it's not letting somebody else tell you what you're going to do. It's broadening your horizons and taking advantage of opportunities to open up possibilities. Don't let what other people think of you define you. And don't let what other people tell you is your box be your whole world. Okay, you're in this box. Great. Make the box bigger. Find different things to put in that box. When I came to you guys, I just wanted to be on TV. That's it. I was like, you got to put this mug all over the nation because, man, look, I mean, the beard hides it a little bit, but I am stunningly beautiful.
Yes, you are. Yes, you
Thank
are.
you. Thank you. You saw me pre-Bush, but we, I just wanted to be on TV because I wanted to be a wrestling commentator. That's all I want to do. I want to be a pro wrestling commentator. And you actually said something to me that really stood out to me, and that was, hey, that's great. But if you don't know the other sports, then you're not going to be useful because you only know one thing. Well, that's a very niche market.
Mm-hmm.
But if you know multiple things, boy, you are a commodity.
I remember that conversation. Yep.
It was and it was one I needed because I wasn't putting the effort into other things. I wasn't. I was solely focused on, well, I know wrestling and nobody else in here knows wrestling. So ha ha ha, I know football, European football. I know football. Nobody else here knows football. Ha ha ha. And then everybody else was like, well, we know basketball. We know American football. We know baseball. We know volleyball. I'm like, ha ha. Oh yeah. So I became a student of those games. Because again, I wasn't really into traditional sports aside from watching, my teams, the Celtics, the Bruins, the Patriots, the Red Sox. I was a Boston sports fan. And you don't learn anything watching one team. So, I started to really study. And I would ask questions where people are like, you're 20 years old. Like, how do you not know this? I didn't pay attention. But now I'm paying attention, And so now I can call football, basketball. I haven't gotten to do baseball yet. I'd like to try it. I can announce volleyball. I can announce basketball. You mentioned I do PA. I'm the PA voice of White Auditorium. I have been for 2 years here in Emporia, permanently. And then I was filling in left and right for my boss, when he was still doing it. Never thought I'd be doing that. I always figured I'd be the guy calling the action, not the guy hyping up the crowd. But God, I love doing it. But learning those sports, I think being a late bloomer, for lack of a better term, made me a better student because it's like most people forget those little tidbits because it's like, I know this, so why do I need to know this? I'm like, I need to know everything. And I think knowing the obscure sports actually did make me more of a commodity because, oh, he does know traditional sports. He does know football. He does know basketball. He does know baseball. But he knows wrestling. We don't have anyone else that knows wrestling, And so for the last 10 years almost, I've been at state wrestling for Emporia High School. I've called state championship matches and things like that because I knew wrestling, but I also knew the traditional sports. I expanded my horizons, and it led to my already existing skills being amplified by this new set of skills. I redefined who I was, and I redefined my knowledge, and it created more possibilities and opportunities. So When you ask that question, I know I go on and I apologize, but it's, again, don't limit yourself to one thing. Okay, you want to be this, but sometimes you got to do this to do this. Sometimes you got to start here to get to here. You have to do these things. And the possibilities and the opportunities will come, but don't limit yourself and don't turn things down. That drives me crazy. Take the opportunities as they come. And you'd be surprised where you'll find yourself.
Yeah, you've just encapsulated the last couple of questions I had right there with redefining what's possible. Because my last question was going to be, what advice do you have for current or potential students? And you gave it to them right there. Grow that box, make it bigger.
Yeah.
Don't turn down opportunities. Give yourself a chance to grow.
And I'll add one thing for the advice, if I may. I don't want to take up too much more time, but remember that you're not the greatest that's ever been.
Ability goes a long way.
And listen, when I was younger, I would always try to make myself sound greater than I am. I have had, 10 plus years, 10 years almost, to reflect on who I was, just 10 years ago when I met you guys. And I was so desperate to prove myself that I always had to be the most impressive person in the room. I always had an answer. Didn't mean the answer was right, but I always had an answer. And I always had an excuse. If something went wrong and it was just because of my negligence or because I didn't think about it, I always had an excuse. Well, yeah, I forgot the rundown sheet, but my car broke down. That did happen, Joe. I just want to be clear.
Okay.
That did happen.
I believe you.
That did happen. I remember that because my car did break down, but it had broken down hours before, and I could have gotten a ride or something. I was just lazy. I didn't, because I didn't think about it. I was like, we can do it off our phones or whatever. I'm gonna get some more sleep and da 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 da. And I made excuses, and that didn't last very long. You guys shut that stuff down pretty fast. I still have PTSD from that, but you're never as good as you think you are. And in my head, I'm never good. My brain is constantly battling, with other people's dialogues. That's just kind of the way my brain's wired is, and I think it goes back to my, my youth when, I kind of had my confidence destroyed. It still lingers and I still deal with that. But I do have to kind of remind myself, yeah, you did good on this, but, enjoy it. And then what's next? There's always somebody that's coming up behind you or somebody ahead of you, and they're there for a reason. So just remember, humility is important. It's great if but you don't always have, my dad always used to say, it's okay to be the smartest guy in the room. There's nothing wrong with that. But you don't always have to tell everybody how much smarter you are than that. And the other thing too is be authentic. Don't try and be the next so-and-so. I hate that quote. Oh, he's the next, Mitch Holtis. No, I'm not. All due respect to Mitch, I would love to be, in his position, but I don't want to be the next Mitch Holtis. I want to be the first Tagan Trahoon. And that's who I am right now. I have a style that is so unique. Joe, forgive me if you gotta cut this part, but it pissed people off when I came in and started doing the PA because I didn't do it like my boss. I am very loud, and I'm at an 11, and we're only going up from there. I don't believe in de-escalating. I believe in we're going to start at Party Central, and we're going to Party Capital. That's the only way is up. And some people didn't like that because they're like, he's too loud, and he's constantly loud. He's too loud. And people would come up to me all the time. You're too loud. You need to bring it down just a little bit. And I'm just like, yeah, that's not going to happen. That's not me. That's not, I'm not this person that you want me to be. I'm different and I'm new. you're going to have to get used to it. And that went on for, I was filling in for my boss, for like the first 6-7 years that I was here. So I would occasionally go and announce. And then he stepped down as the voice of White Auditorium 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And I took over, and I've been doing it for the last 2 years. And the first year, holy gosh, it was rough because people were constantly just like, well, he's exciting, but he's just too loud, or he's exciting. Why is he clucking like a chicken? Like there's a read that I do where I'd read it for years. It was a Pizza Ranch read that says Pizza Ranch, home of the country's best chicken. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Like, it's a pizza place. We're talking about chicken. So I said, I'm going to treat this as ridiculous as this. And I started doing a chicken cluck at the end of it. And some people thought it was hilarious. Other people are like, what? Like, what is, why? Like, what is he doing? It's like, he's making a mockery of this. And I'm like, I'm being me. I'm being my authentic self.
Yeah, we all have to have our own style. And Tagan, you have a style all your own. I'm so glad I got to be a part of that journey. I'm so proud of you and what you've accomplished and all the great things you're doing. I really love the mentoring that you're doing because, that's one of the things we teach at the University of Central Missouri. Yeah. Education for service. Give back. You be the change. You be the support that some other kid is going to need. And we're glad that we were a part of that for you.
Hey, I appreciate it. And, like I said, be authentic, be yourself, because people will become accustomed to it. That's what's happened with me. Now, if I don't cluck like a chicken, people are wondering what's wrong. Be yourself and be authentic.
You keep on clucking, brother. Keep on clucking.
I will. And I appreciate the opportunity, Joe. I hope you know how much this means to me, to get to share this with you and to see the pride in your eyes for me when I didn't think I was going to make it at times. You guys pushed me and motivated me. And my last piece of advice very quickly, if you want somebody who's going to believe in you and follow you and support you even after you got your degree, you need to go to the University of Central Missouri because they stay with you for life.
Good piece of advice. That's a great note to end on. Tagan, thank you for being here. And thanks all of you for tuning in today. Remember, you can catch every episode on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/UCMMN. You can also listen on Spotify. Special thanks to Jake Mager for our theme music. Again, this is Dr. Joe Moore reminding you, you can get there from here. Have a great day.